We are on the air, Zilla.
That's good. Hey, it's Thursday. It is the 10th?
Yes, the 10th.
The 10th. It's 7:15, so it's blocking my date on my watch.
5 days until the annual enrollment period for Medicare.
The next phase of it starts. Yes, we're in the sneak peek phase, but the enrollment change phase comes in 5 days.
So yeah, we are going to talk about something that is important in your personal life and in your business life.
Yep.
And that is consent.
Yep, super important. One thing that is one of the things that brought this to mind is the Medicare enrollment period.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that we are required by CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is consent to discuss plans.
You know, it has been really interesting with the new people coming in on how many people that concept is foreign to.
Yeah, that's kind of nerve-wracking.
And they've been in the system for, years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they may have forgotten that they signed one, or it might have been, I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it.
But
maybe they were self-enrolled. Self-enrolleds are it's all a verbal thing, so it's easy that they didn't spot it.
Yeah, but it's one of those weird little trends out there. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a consent form there. Mm-hmm. We sign a lot of those statements, and we just kind of blow through and not think of any regard of what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's why when we start talking and walking people through different aspects of insurance, we get consent because it's critical. Mm-hmm. If we're doing a remote, we do the call in. It's like, hey, can I connect and be your broker of record? And we explain what it means. Mm-hmm. And if they say no, it's like, awesome. Hey, have a nice day.
Yeah.
We've always been that way. Always will be.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of critical to get those buy-ins. It's those consent forms are throughout the universe in business.
Yeah.
A great example of that is your estimate for your car.
I never thought about that as a consent form.
Because on a true one, it's like, here's the estimate. Do I have permission to go further? If it's within, so far, do I need to call you first?
No. You're talking about car repair estimates. I was thinking car sale estimates.
Yeah, no, car repair, any sort of building is like, yeah, here's your estimate. Do we proceed?
Yeah. And then there's consent at the doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
That's another example, a great example of where consent's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole HIPAA thing. Now, health insurance is all HIPAA bound. Health Insurance Privacy and Portability Act.
That's one of the laws.
Right.
And I have to say one of the laws because someone came in and it's like, well, you use this third-party app. Cool. Come in, sign the form. Mm-hmm. There are so many stinking laws that are tightened down on why we don't talk and why we don't spread stuff around. Mm-hmm. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And we do that on a consistent basis. Like, sure.
Yeah. And yeah, we've got multiple ways to figure out how to make things work. Not really a problem. We want to make sure that everyone's comfortable in what's going on. If you're not comfortable with this particular aspect, we avoid that particular aspect. And that's a consent thing. It's like, okay, I don't want to talk about dental products. Okay, great. We won't. We'll talk about everything else, and, it's just really important to be clear on who you're giving your consent to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And making sure that you just don't blow through signatures. And one of those ones is being more watchful of what's going on. Mm-hmm. In last May, the about 800 to 900 agents started getting their notices for that they were going to lose their license for several months, and because of their lack of consent. Mm-hmm. They were enrolling people into plans that they didn't have permission to, or didn't have contact to, and it's kind of throwing the industry upside down at this point.
Yeah, consent's super important, and it's. I appreciate that CMS is being more proactive about getting consumer consent for health insurance. It's always been kind of industry driven. That the insurance companies have always been sort of self-policing in that regard. And when you're dealing with the individual stuff, it kind of, I don't know.
Well, we can't really be self-policing. Let's just be honest right up front.
Okay.
We cannot be self-policing. We cannot talk poorly about another agent if we know that if they're doing horrible things. We can tell them, hey, go look up the office of the insurance commissioner.
Yeah.
But we cannot disparage another contract holder. Likewise, an agency is not going to talk poorly about the company above it because there's clauses in their contract that doesn't allow them to.
Yeah. Well, disparagement is one thing. I'm talking about the corporations policing their agents and their brokers. That's the self-policing I was talking about there.
The corporates don't police.
Okay. Well, then I was wrong.
We've seen enough shenanigans in the backside that there's not enough, and it's. I would love for the office of the insurance commissioner to look at that a lot closer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time it gets this weird hands off. It's like, oh well, let's just let them figure it out, and it's just like, dude, you need to protect the consumer with their private information.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like walking into a bar, ordering a drink, and someone slipping you something extra.
Yeah.
Because I think you'd have a good ride.
Yeah.
And that's really the crux position, because folks are doing that. They're doing hey, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
And that's where people are getting their licenses suspended, because they were not asking permission.
Yes.
And thought, oh, we'll just make it up later.
And that's really critical, is the whole, hey, I'm going to, ask for stinking permission.
It's not brain surgery.
Well, no, it takes a little bit of courage.
Yeah, I guess.
It does. Because you are okay, this is the direction we're going to go. Would you like to go that direction?
Yeah.
And if someone says no, it's like, okay, you got to respect them enough to change.
Yeah. Well, absolutely true. One of the things that triggered a lot of this overall is things like what's the phrase I'm looking for? The call centers. There was realized that there was money to be had in individual plans. And so there's some very large groups out there doing cold calling and during this time of year and just saying, hey, let's get you into something that's free.
Well, it's practices that were supposed to be ended with the CAN-SPAM Act in the early 2000s. And that really reshaped our industry.
It did.
Because, you were no longer supposed to do those cold calls.
You're supposed to have consent.
You were supposed to have consent.
You're supposed to have permission to contact.
And they've kind of done this. There's been certain groups that have kind of weaseled those doors open.
Well, part of it here's the thing: a permission to contact is pretty loose. If you go to find a website, and you go, oh hey, let's get a quote. Suddenly, you've given your permission to contact, and your phone will not stop ringing.
Yeah. And it's really, I think the crux position is some of these things are better done in person, and knowing who having that person sit across from you, so that if things go sideways, you've got a point of contact.
A local point of contact, exactly. The call centers, what they're doing is they're basically just selling the product. They're not supporting the client.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody has something go wrong, they can't call that agent or broker and say, "Hey, can you help me out with that?" They can't do that. That's not an option.
Well, they're also, customer service is customer service. It's very important. I'm sure that they've got lockdowns on information because we're dealing with personal information.
Well, yeah, of course they do.
And at the same time, it's one of the reasons why when we've been presented opportunities to hire temporary, we said no every time.
Mm-hmm. Because we want to make sure that the private information that comes through our doors is protected.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have just somebody who's in here for 3 or 4 months with just a surface trust level, you might be providing information. Well, okay, I'm having trouble with this one. We want to make sure that your stuff stays your stuff. And if you've got a temp in there, if you've got a temporary employee in there, there's always a chance that it's not the person you wanted, that you thought they were, then you hired them.
Well, I got a classic example. This was years and years and years ago when I was doing project management, and it was one of my neighboring accounts. They were processing credit cards, and the facilities management thought it was a brilliant idea for the reception person when they weren't doing reception-y things, because we're a production facility, so we rarely get people, that they were going to process these credit cards.
Okay.
Well, they were using temporary labor.
Oh.
And that person that was sitting on that front desk that they'd known for a period of like a month decided it was a brilliant idea to take some of those credit card numbers and for them and their boyfriend to order pizzas.
Oh. So they stole credit card numbers.
Yes, they literally stole credit card numbers.
That's not good. That's not okay.
No, they went to jail over it.
Good.
And that's one of those things. It's like they did something without consent. However, having the expectation of, hey, this is a great employee. Let's give them some extra things. It's like, well, where is their permission that they're going to be around longer than the week? Because we're talking temporary labor. It's like, you're gone at the end of the week.
Yeah, exactly. You're just hired for a short contract.
You should.
Well, and the thing is, you're not even hiring them. You're using a temp agency, and they're doing the hiring.
Yeah.
They're doing the vetting. You're trusting the temp agency to do it right.
Yeah, and like I said, these were weekly contracts at that point. So it was like, this is why they didn't have any vested interest. There was no permission to have handle the sensitive materials. They had no training or insight, and they were basically a kid.
Yeah,
we're not talking someone that was on the other side of 30. They still probably hung around with a few there from high school. That's on how young they were. And so it's really important. It's like, okay, yeah, there's processes all along the way, and there was no permission and because there's limitations.
Yeah.
And that's really important when it comes to consent. Is you got to ask for permission, and regardless of what the other person says, you've got to honor it.
Right. That's consent.
That's consent. However, in this day and age, it's really hard for a lot of people to do that.
To ask for consent?
Well, A, to ask for it. B, to respond in a neutral manner, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of poor sports out there.
That's true. That's true.
So you start to
Go on. You were saying.
Yes, there are people out there who have this horrible negative response anytime you respond in a manner that you don't that the person doesn't expect.
Well, and then there are people who are afraid to get that negative response.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing too. People are afraid to say no because they don't want to get that negative response back.
Yeah, and that creates a whole huge amount of issues on the back end.
Exactly.
Because they're not getting, what they need and want. They're not establishing boundaries. And you can be led just so far sideways from where you actually want and should be.
So so what it boils down to in a lot of ways is if you are a agent, broker, somebody who's doing something that requires consent from your customer, make sure that your customer is comfortable with that consent. That they are actually understanding what they're signing.
Well, it's understanding, but it's not just agents and brokers and services.
No, I'm just.
It's a good example of that is a simple question that most people remember. Would you like paper or plastic with that? Would you like fries with that?
What, the suggestive sell?
Though, while you say it's also consent. Mm-hmm. It's not, here, I threw in some fries for an extra $2.
Yeah, that's true. It's an ask.
It is an ask. And regardless of the outcome, it still moves forward. Mm-hmm. And it moves forward in a positive manner. Mm-hmm. It's not the lone onion ring in the fries.
Your onion ring
fries. Your onion ring surprise, the one ring to rule them all. It's because anytime you get a surprise, you have to think it through. You have to think it through whether it's a positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And that slows things down. There's people who just get thrown sideways with surprises. Mm-hmm. There are others that are like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And they think about it, and they might try something, but if they're trying something, it's, hey, I'm going to try this, and they kind of put their little pinky toe in the water.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just, as long as everyone is like, yeah, we're going to try this, and you let them know, hey, mm-hmm. this is a first time thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of special. We're going to go a little bit slow. Mm-hmm. And if they say, oh, no, I want some more. Oh, cool. You want some more experience? We'll get Fred from the back room.
Yeah. There's always ways to make that work.
And there's different ways. But again, it's that you're letting the person across from you know what's going on. You're honoring them by saying, hey, you know what? You are strong enough to answer a question truthfully, and I am strong enough to respond in a positive manner. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, consent is about respect. Mm-hmm. Respect for your fellow human being. And folks who are doing things without consent are not respectful of their fellow human being.
Well, you said singular there. I'm going to call you on that one.
Okay.
You said not in respect of their fellow human being. And I think that consent and respect is a habit.
Okay.
And that if someone is asking for consent on a regular basis, asking for those permissions and getting that ebb and flow of good communication, that it's a habit, and it leads to other things. It leads to other relationships. It mm-hmm. leads to people saying, you know what, I feel really good working with that person.
There you go.
And it leads to your personal life. Mm-hmm. It's the, we could, go out to that new Italian place. It leads to that. And likewise, the other side is also true. Someone who doesn't ask for consent mm-hmm. or is just, either shifts it and says, oh, well, I'm not going to ask, as either it becomes a habit.
To not ask.
it becomes a habit to shut down. You're not that respect. If you're not respecting yourself, you're not respecting others.
Yeah.
It becomes that negative habit. So you've got that, and that's probably a pretty good measure of people and how they move.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the old saying of I'm not going to I'm going to think poorly of someone who mistreats the waiter.
Okay.
Because what you're doing is you're showing a lack of respect to someone who can't defend themselves, who's in that position of service, and by heaping abuses on them, you're gonna, first chance you get for someone that cannot defend themselves for whatever reason, you're going to heap abuses onto.
Yeah. And
it's a habit.
Yeah, and it becomes a thing. And these are not normally people you really kind of want around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they're if they're gonna abuse the waiter, they're gonna abuse you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a good measuring stick. And it's like, do you want to do business with someone like that?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because first chance they get, they're gonna abuse you.
Mm-hmm.
You can have contracts, the cows come home, exit clauses, ironclad agreements and lawyers in your back pocket. At the end of the day, it becomes a stinking mess first chance they get, because of that lack of respect.
Yep. Respect and consent do have a tendency to go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's you start to measure it by actions and what they do. And like I said, it could be something as insignificant as hey, how did they treat the person who opened the door for them? Or hey, did they open the door for someone? Did they hand them an umbrella, or did they hand them a pen?
Or offer them this, or offer them a cup of coffee, or whatever the small things are. Small things are respect, I guess, as you could say.
Small things add up.
They do. And that's a lot of that's relationship building. When you think about it, that's one of the things that we do here at our agent at Wenatchee Insurance is we build relationships.
Yeah.
And that's super important to be cognizant of that level of respect and the level of consent. If you don't want to talk about this with me, I'm cool with that. I do not have your consent to discuss this topic with you. That's fine. That's me respecting you.
Now, to be fair, like I'll love the Medicare for this one, because there's like 5 check boxes on the form.
Yeah.
Which means if someone's going off on this weird tirade about travel insurance or car and home insurance or business insurance, that they've gone off the reservation of what they've got permission to talk about from CMS.
Right. What you have on that form is what you can discuss. And if you go off of if you go off those topics, you're in violation of that consent.
Yeah.
Now, if the Medicare conversation is over, you can pivot when that particular conversation, that transaction is done. You can go to the next conversation, assuming you have, it's like, okay, hey, you want to talk about this next.
And it's tough. It really is, because I've been in several different pitches, and I've had to do we're working on this point first.
Yeah.
And I've had to get people on track, and it's because of, hey, you don't want to get confusing really quick when we're talking about this. We can't do these off topics.
Exactly.
These side quests. No sidebar.
No side quests. Some people, that's the way their brain works, and you have to kind of just gently steer them back. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's finish this, and then we'll get to that later. That's just technique.
Yeah, and some of it is because usually it's usually multiple people in the room and it's like, okay, we're working on this plan first, and it's usually the pal that's with them
that's gonna hijack stuff.
That tries to hijack stuff, and it's like, no, we got to work on this person first and make sure their needs are met.
Yep.
And there was actually there's been a couple times where I've said, okay, hey, I know and respect it. It's awesome that you're excited about this. We need to take care of this person first, and then we'll get to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I've that goes all the way. That goes in so many different ways. So that's one of the things that's if you're if you're standing in line with somebody, this is a retail experience. You're working on somebody's project, and somebody comes up. I just need to drop this off. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
And it's it's like, you are in this person's bubble. Step back. It's like, I will be glad to help you as soon as I'm done taking care of this customer. So it boils down to.
Yeah. And we've got to get those habits of respect and consent back.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who have lost those habits or never learned them in the first place. And we need to make sure that the people who are coming into each industry that they're going into understands the consent, the appropriate consent situations in that situation. We have strict consent when it comes to health insurance. There's consent when it comes to being a bartender. There's consent when it comes to being a cashier. So you have different levels of understanding for what your industry is. And that's okay. The important thing is, and this is where things have a tendency to fall down, is lack of training.
Okay.
Yeah. You've got people who are coming into a job for the first time ever. They've maybe never even had a job before and don't know what the boundaries are and have never been trained on how to establish those consent rules with their customers or clients. And that's where the friend in the back room needs to step up and train the new kid.
Yeah, I can see that one.
And that may be where we're running into some of the problems with the call centers is they were never properly trained.
Hard to say because
a lot of those are straight out of high school kids.
Straight out of high school, and
just got their license, never done this before. They get crammed in a room full of people with phones and told go.
Yeah, except we've met a few people who've run call centers.
Yes.
I've actually did a stint in a call center.
Yeah.
For a blink of an eye.
I've never had to do call center stuff. I have done individual, I've done phone banking and phone calling for one specific reason or one specific project, but I've never done big call center stuff. But still, I mean, I don't know what kind of level of training there is with that. I imagine it's pretty cursory. But the one thing you run into in the boiler room situations is the push is for numbers, not for the client.
Correct. Yeah. It's you're running through the rules of large numbers, and you just go through because you know that if you hit 100, that at least 2 are going to be lay down buyers.
That's the theory.
And then after that, it's your script. If you got a good script, you're probably going to get another 5, 6. And then if you've got ability, you're going to get another 10 after that.
There you go.
That's just the rule of large numbers in any sales organization I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
Those are about where they lie.
Yeah.
And you can tell if you've got someone who's prepping sales. Because they'll have pitter patter of setting up expectations.
Okay.
I do this pretty regularly because I'm at the front desk. I set it with a smile. So, hey, comfort people as they come in the door because no one likes to talk insurance.
No.
And do the hey, how you doing? I acknowledge them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm asking for how they are doing. Some are like, and that was pretty good. I start to build that trust and get their consent to talk with them. And then it's like, oh, hey, okay, you're my 11 o'clock or you got the 12 o'clock with Suzie. Okay, hey, have you filled out this form yet? I'll double check. Oh, hey, you haven't filled. Hey, could you fill out this form for Suzie? Because these are the things that she's going to talk to you about. And these are what's required by CMS.
Exactly. These are the permissions.
And I start to build that trust and that expectation. And it's like, oh yeah, all along the way you get this flow using consent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at any time they could say, no, I just want to deal with Suzie.
Cool. That's why I have the same forms in my office.
And people, it's one of those goofy things, because at that point, Suzie knows that, hey, either Matt's busy jumping through flaming hoops of fire and is not being able to pick up those pieces, or B, they don't respect the person at the front desk.
There you go. Which is an interesting conversation in its own right. We're probably close to time.
We are close to time. We try to run these through. So yes, look at consent. If you see if it's a habit.
Yeah.
See if it's a habit for the people around you.
There you go.
Because if it's not around you, then you could be running into issues if you're not able to set personal boundaries.
Yeah.
So, hey, have a great day.
Yep.
We're Suzilla.
And if someone asks you to sign, if you're in the insurance office and someone asks you to sign something, read it, sign it, you're good to go. Usually.
As long as you know who's sitting across the front of your desk.
That's true. All right. So thanks very much. Have a great week. We will talk to you next week in the throes of the first of the big week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.